So in this video we are going to be talking about Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit is played with Queen's pawn up and the whole idea is to take the central position in control with your Queen and King pawn. Just the same intention that you have with King's Gambit. In this case you start your move with your Queen pawn up, and in defense Black saves um, the forward move of white by responding with his black pawn. Queen Gambit takes the other pawn, attracting the gambit. Most of the time the gambit is declined, in which case a good move for black is to respond with his king pawn, protecting his queen pawn. Queen's Gambit, just like King's Gambit, follows with knight's opening, but in this case it goes queen knight up instead of king knight up as in King's Gambit. So after Queen's Gambit is declined, queen knight moves up, attacking the pawn here. In order to defend this pawn, Black takes his knight up, defending his pawn. In order to attack this knight here, White plays bishop, pinning his knight and queen lined up. Protecting his knight, Black takes the bishop out. That's when you get ready to move your bishop out for White. White moves his king pawn up, getting ready to bring his pieces out. In this case, Black prepares for an attack now. He has been defending all the time. So he goes taking his knight out, attacking this pawn. In order to defend this pawn, White must play the knight forward, protecting this pawn. Black castles. White getting ready to castle, also lining up the bishop for the king check attack. Typical move for Black is to move his rook, protecting his bishop and covering this line. That's a very classical move. And now, instead of castling, White gets ready to attack on the bishop line. This is when Black tries to threaten the bishop out. Remember, in this case, we have to get rid of knight as we have the bishop queen lined up for the king attack. White bishop takes a black knight out, answered with the black bishop. This is when White gets ready to attack on the king side with a check. This is a classical Queen Gambit declined, and clearly, as you can see, Queen has a very strong opening and a very strong game control over the central pieces. So clearly White has a very strong control over the central, and it's already looking to attack the bishop and the queen line. So now it's a check for Black. In order to protect that, Black moves his king. This is when White castles. The whole idea to castle is to protect this pawn and this line with the white rook. So White shapes up for that. In return, Black gets ready to take his bishop out. Clearly his bishop is trapped here, so he looks to come through this line. So he takes the pawn up. This is when the rook comes up here, protecting this line, and also to save future attack from the black rook, which we will see in a minute. And now bishop is all lined up to attack from this line. This is when White starts trading. White has been having a very good control, and this is how it will look once it starts trading. So White takes the pawn, Black answers. White takes it with the knight. Again, this is going to be a setup. because eventually white will win either a knight or a rook if he plays this move. So he has taken the pawn with the knight, but with a mindset that he will eventually move either a knight or a rook. So clearly, black has sees a good opportunity to take the knight. Now he's a knight up. This is when white uses the control that it has established using the queen gambit, attacks the queen. The queen cannot take the pawn because protection is with the queen back, and definitely cannot take the pawn, the king pawn. Sorry, the queen pawn, because of the knight protection. So queen has no other option just to back off. This is when white uses a two pawn control to start attacking. Attacks the bishop. Bishop has nowhere to go. If bishop moves here, it gets attacked with the knight. If a bishop moves here, it again gets attacked with the knight. So bishop has to step back. This is when white even marches ahead, attacking the pawn. Again, if the pawn does not take it, it has solid control over these two places. So black has no other choice but to take the pawn. This is when white brings his bishop down, attacking the rook. The rook, as you can see, is trapped. It cannot go either ways because it's trapped in between king and the queen. Okay, then in return, knight take the pawn, attacking the queen. Knight takes the black knight. Queen defends, because now if the knight marches forward, it will be a fork, attacking the king, taking the queen. Bishop takes the rook. Queen takes the bishop. Knight gives a check. The king moves. Now knight attacking a fork, trapping the rook and the queen. The queen defends. Knight takes the rook. Queen takes the knight. Knight takes the rook takes the bishop. Queen attacks the rook. Rook protects with the other rook, getting also lined up for a beautiful checkmate. This is when black already knows that it lost the match. Now rook prepares for some kind of an attack. This is when rook marches forward, giving a check. Queen takes, rook takes, king moves, check. Oh, sorry, it has to go up line because it has to protect the rook. Queen moves down. Queen takes a bishop. King moves up. Knight moves down, attacking the king row. King moves up. Knight takes a pawn, and this is when king resigns. The black resigns. So as you can see, queen gambit declined. Also gives a very good control for white, and queen gambit is a very classical move, has been followed in chess for around 150 years. It used to be practiced very heavily back in 70s and 80s. Bobby Fischer used to play a lot of queen gambit. Garry Kasparov started taking the queen gambit to a different level when he became the world champion, beating Karpov in late 80s and 90s. And even in today's generation of chess, Vishy Anand, Magnus Carlsen, all the top 5 player, Aronian, Nakamura, they are all, this is a very common opening. Queen gambit is for white, is because of the control that is established with the two pawns, the queen pawn and the king pawn, in the central space, and eventually creating a better shape and a winning probability for white.